Alrighty, hope you guys are doing well. How are we doing today? Just got off of work like literally a minute ago, but we're here. So yeah, uh, transfer plans this week are pretty simple. We're just gonna roll. We're just gonna chill. I don't think there's any kind of news that really wants to integrate. I mean, that really makes me want to change my mind on certain players. I kind of spoke about how if I had a little bit more money in the bank, I definitely would have done something like um, KDH to Minte. The Gabriel issue I don't think is hugely significant because he's someone I would always start in any circumstance as an owner. Um, if there was an issue with Gabriel, I would just have, let's say, I would have just benched him, right? But what we have from Arteta, I think, is good enough to go on where you just think starts or doesn't play whatsoever. So an auto sub would come in, and Anderson's a fantastic auto sub for this week, as things stand. So I don't really mind that piece so much. But that's pretty much it in terms of this week's team selection. As I said, I would have loved to have Minte in the team. He's definitely one of the picks that I really truly do love. But hard to sort of go for Minte this week. And even, within the context of someone like an Enzo, not someone that I can quite stretch to, nor someone that I massively care about, because I do think at that sort of price point, Enzo's incredible for the next 6 weeks ish, but I will only get there within 2 free transfers, and going almost next week could be interesting, but I would almost need like a long-term confirmation that Palmer's out. And look, if he gets surgery, then we'll be on Enzo next week, right? It's as simple as that. But for now, I think everything looks fine. Not too worried about things as they stand. The Cookie Monster. Would you do NJ to Minte? No, I still would probably practice patience on that sort of transfer. So I think definitely, if you own NJ, this is still a good game on paper. I would still play NJ, and I wouldn't really worry about Minte. Like, if I look at my own team, I probably think, some of my defenders are worse than a Minte. They're certainly worse than NJ in terms of just expected value. Even Mateta, with appropriate context as well. So yeah, I would definitely keep NJ. Emeraldo, thank you so much for the super chat. No Arsenal assets, free at a wildcard or just roll. I mean, it depends, like, what you have competing, I guess, against those Arsenal assets. I kind of think that this is a pretty good wildcard window if you want to onboard Arsenal. I do think Gabriel will start. It seems like he's been pictured in training, right? So I don't think there are overwhelming concerns over Gabriel. Hey, Fran. Bench Virgil or Enzo? I'd bench Virgil. Virgil. Ripple Pick, thank you so much for the super chat. On wildcard, Reinders plus Sar plus Pedro, or Gordon plus Enzo plus Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I'd actually probably go Reinders, Sar plus Pedro. I think those are really solid picks. Yeah. Like, Gordon is very nice in the short term, but I think Sar pretty much never loses value. And Reinders is still a very solid pick for the time being at the sort of price point that he's at. So I would back all those players. And to an extent, like, Pedro's not too far off of Enzo, in my opinion. So yeah. Henry says, I bought Gabriel an hour before he yellow flagged. To be honest, I really still think there's no worry about it. Like, if you've bought it, just deal with the situation. Hopefully he plays. Keep an open eye towards having a decent auto sub, right? Beyond that, I don't think there's too much to really fuss about. I think you're kind of relaxed, generally speaking. So yeah, kind of where I'm at with it. Virgil van Dijk to Gabriel. I'd probably roll in this context now. You never know with Arteta. I mean, like, I guess there's obviously like a 10-20% chance that Gabriel might not play. I kind of find that hard to believe, but then I also don't want to be, responsible for that. So I think if you want to go for Gabriel, take your own conviction in terms of his availability and make that move. But then also, almost, I would say, make sure you have a decent auto sub. I don't think I'd be worried about Gabriel, not being a part of the squad, but there is a small chance. Thoughts on selling Salah? I mean, I did it 2 weeks ago, right? So or rather a week ago. I think that's fine. I think if you're moving someone like Salah to Saka and you're using, I guess, some of that inbound cash into upgrading your team elsewhere, I think that's very sensible. I think all the comments in terms of like, is this a serious poor run of Salah form? I think they're fair comments. But I always have been stating, I think this season is not, my concern has not been over Salah specifically as a player, but rather just Salah and how Liverpool operate as a whole, right? If you kind of compare it to last year, he's like the engine of the team in terms of you're orchestrating all your opportunities so that Salah racks up a lot of shots. Right now, there isn't that sort of overall level of control from Liverpool or dominance, and Salah's not necessarily benefiting from that either. Isak, thank you so much for the super chat. Would you play Sanchez, or sorry, it could be Isaac. Would you play Sanchez or Dubravka this game week? I think it's close. I would actually, in situations like this, I would almost look towards whether I have, let's say, a Liverpool attacker, maybe even an Aston Villa attacker, and then make a decision based on that, because the clean sheet odds between Chelsea and Burnley, from what I could last see, are basically neck and neck, right? I think they're around 17-18%. So for me, that's a true 50-50. I would make that decision. If, let's say, I had Watkins or Rodgers in my team, I'd probably just play Sanchez. If I had, let's say, Salah, and I still wanted Salah to get something out of that game, I'd probably just go Dubravka and just hope for the best in terms of both outcomes. But it's a close call. I don't think you, like, if you were to look back from this game week and just assess in terms of the odds, and just make a level-headed decision, like, there's nothing wrong with playing either. I think just choose based on your own preference. Like, I myself, if I had no considerations of, do I have an attacker from the opposing team, that sort of thing, I'd probably actually still go Sanchez, because I do think that Chelsea are a solid defense, you know, irrespective of the amount of injuries that they have, or rather red cards. Triple Saka, triple captain Saka. I can't really see the value of it. If I'm honest, I think almost the Nuno thing is kind of like, if, let's say, Potter was in charge, I would generally consider things like, you know, captaining Gyökeres, captaining Saka, but I almost think there's that small Nuno buff. I do think Arsenal will go full strength. Like, that's not a concern of mine, but it's just, you know, Haaland is still around, right? Sarr, I think, is fantastic. Virgil van Dijk or JP. And if you're talking about starts, I would just go JP. Any team leagues for Bournemouth is Fulham. I mean, none of that should really surprise us, right? Like, what are you kind of looking for from that game? Start Van de Ven or Guehi? I'd probably just start Guehi. Anish, thank you so much for the super chat. So you've got Raya, Virgil van Dijk, Senesi, Lacroix, lovely. Gakpo, Eze, Semenyo, Kudus, Sarr, Haaland, Pedro. Should I -4? Can you do Gakpo to Saka here? I think that's worth a -4. I think that's actually generally good consideration for something being worth a -4. I think that's an interesting move that I would definitely consider. Start Richards or Senesi? For me, it's Senesi first, right? Home game, so yeah. Yep, sup. Who would you start, Van Dijk or João Pedro? I would still go João Pedro personally. Like, I own Virgil van Dijk, but, you know, if I own João Pedro, I'd probably bench Virgil, probably play João Pedro. Hi, Fran. Gordon, Gyökeres, or Waltemad and Saka? I think I would... Actually, because of the Wisa news, I would actually consider Waltemad and Saka. Then again, though, you're actually backing 2 penalty takers with Gordon Gyökeres. I'd probably go Gordon Gyökeres, actually. Sorry. I don't want to revert my answer. Thank you, Mo, so much for sending memberships across. Bobby Mo, Robert, Gerv, Josip, and 14 mil, the greatest. Please feel free to thank Mo for his sort of lovely contribution to the channel. Thank you so much. And really appreciate it, my friend. Hope you're doing well. If you don't have any Arsenal players, or is it fine to roll? Once again, look, football is sometimes a game where sure, it seems like an extremely depressing week if you don't have Arsenal players. But look back at a week like last week where if you actually only had Haaland last week, you would have survived, right? I mean, City could have still blanked versus Burnley, and for the most part, everyone did. Not many people had Doku. If you had Foden, for example, if you have, let's say, Reinders, who I went into, if you went and wildcarded into a Guardiola, I mean, they're still capable of blanking with some really high percentage games. So it's not the end of the world if you don't have triple Arsenal, right? Thoughts on selling Haaland for Salah for that upcoming Liverpool run? Man, I'll be honest. Let's watch Liverpool, see how they play versus Chelsea, see if anything changes. Because right now, as almost as trends go, I don't think I'll do it. On paper, sure, I get it. Expected points in terms of models and all things like that. But there's also that sort of TV impact of, we've probably got money tied up towards Haaland. More people, if let's say Salah continues as he is, are probably just going to continue selling Salah. Yeah, I don't think I'd take that bet personally. Hey Fran, thanks for the Virgil versus Enzo. I would go Enzo. Look, once again, if I had the Chelsea players, I'd probably just bench Virgil. But I'm let's just say I'm a step behind you guys potentially with the Chelsea players this week, and I'm gonna play Virgil, for better or for worse. Are we backing big at the back? I am backing big at the back, very much so. Gabriel over Njai, I think, I'd play Gabriel over Njai easily. If you wanted to ask that single question, but I'd probably try to find a way to play both this week. Anish says 2.9 million left. Gakpo to Saka or Jesus to Waltemata. Was that Igor Jesus? I'd go Gakpo to Saka still, personally. Because I still think that Saka's a very, very good long-term pick. With Waltemata, I guess because he's not on penalties, there's also that sort of, slight detriment there. Just to think about. Dan Watson, thank you so much for the super chat. Bench one, Anthony and Jai or Jao Pedro. Tough one there, actually. I mean, I don't think this is a great Anthony game, if I'm honest. I think I'd just bench Anthony. Mitoma out, Minte in. If you don't have a good auto sub, I think that's a reasonable transfer. If you do have a good auto sub, I don't think that's really worth a transfer. Mitoma out. Sorry, I've literally read that question. Saka or Eze? I'd go Saka still. Look, I mean, Eze's minutes look good, but you also have to kind of take into account, sure, Eze got a lot of shots off versus Newcastle, but there's still going to be games where, his minutes, I think, are slightly dicier than Saka's, overall. And then just the overall aspect of he's not on a lot of set pieces, because for Eze to be on set pieces, it almost requires Martinelli and Rice to be off the pitch. It also requires, like even with Odegaard coming back in too, like that's more set pieces now with left footers on the right hand side. On the left hand side, as I said, you have competing options now. Maybe Eze, I think, is ahead of Martinelli in the pecking order, but there's not that much surplus benefits, right? And it's not like he's on direct free kicks or something like that. So yeah, something to think about. Best wildcard picks this week. I've actually created a wildcard 7 draft. I think Enzo's interesting. I think Ismaili Assar. I think the defense actually is quite close to my own if I wanted to toot my own horn, if I can be honest. Otherwise, I would say from an attacking point of view, like DCL is not bad for a bench boost. I think, in fact, even if let's say you were to move into some sort of big in the middle, big at the back world where suddenly you're not spending a lot of money on forwards and you have Haaland plus DCL, I don't think that's bad. You know, like moving towards maybe, you know, Saka in the midfield, if you had the opportunity to do that. Foden if his minutes stay sort of perfect, but just the idea of maybe actually having like Virgil and Gabriel, I don't think is a bad long-term solution as well, especially if you're going to go Raya as an expensive goalkeeper. I can't see how João Pedro doesn't start personally, especially since he's been in training. Llewellyn says, hey Fran, words out for Eze, Semenyo, or Gordon. I probably would just go for Gordon for a 1 week punt. I still almost prefer Gordon just ever so slightly over Semenyo and Eze this week, right? If you could go to Saka, I would recommend Saka, but I think assuming that you can't, I would probably take the bet on Gordon because I think it doesn't require, like, I would say that if Gordon plays really good minutes this week, I think he's just flat out better than Semenyo, but of course he could hit the lower end of that ceiling, right? Foden's quite interesting to me, to be honest, still as 1 week punt. You know, just because the Brentford away fixture is actually really, really good. Not even just naturally, historically for someone like Foden, but just looking at the predicted goals per the markets. Do you think Bruno will be off pens and Mbemo possibly on pens? I don't think that that's going to happen, but of course I'll have to react as a manager immediately. Now, how soon are Man United going to get their next penalty? I don't know, but I think my guess is still that Bruno's on penalties. I think he has the mental fortitude to keep penalties as opposed to giving them away, and I think it is still his to give. I think Gabriel will play. BL, nice to see you around, my friend. Hi, Fran. I have Raya and need to bench one. Tarkowski, Burns, Senesi, Gabriel. Oh my god. That's really good. Whoa. That's an absurdly good bench, my friend. I don't actually know. I'd probably bench... Do I really want to tell you to bench Burn? I just don't know if it makes any sense. The only thing I'll say with Burn is if he plays, maybe I'll bench Burn. I actually think, yeah, I would bench Burn probably because I think still looking at the clean sheet odds, the other players are more interesting, and at the same time, all the other players are actually like better on DEFCON, right, in terms of Tarkowski and Senesi, or just have better clean sheet odds in Gabriel. So I would just bench Burn. Do I have to sell Salah if I have Salah and Haaland? I don't think you need to. Generally, I think Salah and Haaland is an interesting structure to live on. Like, I was building the wildcard draft this week, and I think it was still quite tough to actually ignore Salah. And a lot of people are still eyeing up Salah as soon as we hit next week, right? If you look at the fixtures, it's basically a case of, okay, game week 7 isn't a good Liverpool game, but, you know, you flip the script and suddenly Liverpool's versus Man United again, and actually things are looking quite good for Liverpool and Salah. Right, and if I just look week to week, compare game to game, I mean, once again, Liverpool have a much better game than City here. Aston Villa away, I think, is still a tough match, especially if you're expecting like a lot of attacking returns from Haaland, whereas obviously Salah just has this game week's game for Haaland from game week 10. You know, if we want to do that sort of comparison, I think quite a good Haaland game, but Bournemouth have shown to be really, really impressive so far. Liverpool are at least versus Aston Villa, which, you know, on the flip side, just haven't really been that impressive. But, you know, the wider question, I guess, is have Liverpool themselves been impressive? I guess I can say that City haven't looked like world beaters as a team, but Haaland just individually has just been an absolute menace. So, you know, is it possible that people will actually want to shift Salah to Haaland? Or rather, vice versa, do Haaland to Salah? I think it's probable, right? A lot of people who are analytically inclined will definitely do that. But then there's also that sort of question of the wider sort of looming long-term question of, is Salah just not washed, but are we expecting just less from him, you know, compared to the ridiculous standard set year on year? And I guess same with Liverpool, right? Or even from a goal share perspective, is this the year where he's no longer that dominant force from attack? So I think holding Salah is perfectly fine, because when we sort of reanalyze the games, I mean, there's a case, at least from a fixtures perspective, to say that Salah is better than Haaland even as soon as next week. Gabriel going to start? I think so. Gyökeres vice captain. True. Yeah, Gyökeres vice captain is a good one. I haven't actually thought about vice captain at all. I just think that Bruno's so nailed. Yeah, I haven't actually thought about it. It's not a huge difference to me, if I'm honest. I think Bruno has a very, very high floor, less so ceiling. but then who knows if Gyökeres' minutes are going to be managed potentially, right? And that could be a dampener for me. Hi, Fran. Pick one to bench, Van de Ven or Konsa. Easily Van de Ven. I mean, I'd play Konsa every day this match. Bench one, Fran, Tavernier or Wood. I'd probably bench Wood. Hey, Fran, is it fine if I have a Stev instead of Lacroix? You mean to play this week? I mean, it's okay. It clearly isn't the same, but Truffet or Van de Ven on the bench. You don't have Senesi. I'd play Truffet. I mean, I'd put Van de Ven on the bench. Yeah. Fran, am I mad thinking Salah over Haaland captain? Yes, I think you are. I would not do it. Gakpo to Minte makes a lot of sense to me. EY says start Munoz or Anderson. You already have Guehi on the pitch. I'd still go Munoz. I have one free transfer. Should I use it on Lacroix? I don't think it's necessarily worth a free transfer personally. I'd still eye up Arsenal first, maybe even Newcastle to an extent. But yeah, I'm not going to say Lacroix is essential. I think it's just a very, very good pick, and I would re-pick him on the wild card if I could. Would you consider playing a free hit if you have 0 Arsenal? I don't think it's necessary, my friend. Shout out to all the managers that started Roden last game week and triple captain Haaland. Right. Should we get the Barack Obama meme where he's giving himself a medal? But thank you, Chisel Planet, for the message, and congratulations to yourself for playing Roden last week. Even though that's probably just an indication that you had a bad defense, right? On paper. No, I'm kidding. Yala says, hey, Fran, still thinking Gakpo to Saka even if wildcarding this week. I think it's worth it for a 1 week punt personally. Crystal Palace or Tottenham benching? What do you mean in terms of rotation? I can't see too much Crystal Palace. I can't see too much Tottenham either. Both those teams are, still fighting for important things within the Premier League. So, before an international break, is there a huge need? Am I going to the FPL meet tomorrow? I am. So I'll see you there. If you're there, play one Virgil Richards stack. I think I'd play Richards. Actually, I think I'd play Stack first, and then Richards, then Virgil. Would you bench Pedro or Tarko? I'd probably bench Pedro over Tarko. Start Rodgers or Evan Nilsson. Let's give some credit to Rodgers. I think I'd start Rodgers this week. This might be the only week where you catch me saying that. At the same time, yeah, I'd still go Rodgers. Hi, Fran. What is the time for Haaland triple captain? I mean, this isn't a bad one. This isn't a bad one for sure. You'll kind of have to wait, right? This is a bad run of games for Haaland. But is it a bad run of games? I guess we'll find out. Leeds at home is just nice. Sunderland at home is nice. West Ham at home is nice. You've got 3 opportunities, right? So just wait for it to come. I mean, actually, that's a good question for chat, right? Are you guys going to do that? Bogdan, thank you so much for the super chat. -4 for JSL to Gyökeres and Nico Williams to Gabriel. I think it is worth it, but, do sort of reassess in terms of the Gabriel thing. Torvesta, nice to see you around, my friend. I thought you'd never come back after that awful season that I had. But bench Romero, Van de Ven, or Richards. I'd probably bench Van de Ven. I feel like Romero's classic case of he plays or he doesn't, right? Or starts or he doesn't. I remember last time around you were asking me about a Gakpo starting, and at least he started. So we got the mints right there. But I think Romero, generally speaking, is just better than Van de Ven. Richards obviously has that sort of safety net of defensive contributions. Romero's, as I said, far clearer of Van de Ven on DEFCON. So, treat it like that. What about Haaland triple captain Everton? Honestly, I've never actually thought about Everton as a good game on paper for any team. Even for Crystal Palace, I think this is a pretty bad game on paper. I just think also Everton, maybe we've overestimated how good the attack has been with some of the changes, and so I feel quite comfortable playing Lacroix this week. Not to mention, of course, I don't own Everton players, so that just makes the decision easier in my head, just based on the odds as well. Have I got any plans for my free hit? Loosely speaking, as I said, within my transfer plans, 11 or 14. Should I start Gakpo or Reinders? I think I'd start Reinders over Gakpo. Gyökeres or Watkins this week only? This week only. I'd probably still go Gyökeres. Please, can I get a selfie with you tomorrow? I mean, if you're there at FPL meets, why not? Why would I deny you? Paqueta to Minte. I was really considering this move a lot this week, and I just ultimately do not like the move. I think Paqueta looks quite interesting. Him getting onto a lot more set pieces, I think, is a positive sign. Let's not... Okay, maybe a different way to answer that question is, I think if you've somehow banked a lot of free transfers, I would probably make the move. If you're in kind of my personal team context where you don't have a lot of free transfers racked up, then I think that's a separate consideration. So yeah, just something to mention, right? The main reason why I want to roll within my team, and I'm just considering this myself, right? It's just, I think there's a possibility that this weekend we could see Mateta finally have reduced minutes. And if that starts to come in and I suddenly have to take account of that within the medium to long term for my own team, it makes much more sense for me to use 2 free transfers to address that next week by maybe going down on Mateta, maybe going up on Mateta to João Pedro if I need to. I don't really like the idea of going for João Pedro, not because I think João Pedro is a bad asset, because actually I'd just rather take on the ownership, 56%, 60%, whatever it is. I don't mind. Come at me. But if Mateta plays really good minutes once again, then I almost feel like, okay, at least I have that level of information, and then maybe we don't have to be so worried about Mateta in the short term. But I think leaving some room to have the opportunity to sort of fix that with quotation marks, right? Because obviously it could just be the same thing as Thiago as well, where this could be a period of games where Mateta has reduced minutes because obviously of the European considerations, and suddenly I end up selling someone like Thiago as he's about to brace versus United. Now, Mateta's games aren't perfect, but Crystal Palace, as we've probably established so far, are the fixture, as in they're really, really good. It's more so a case of their fixtures are actually really good again, starting from game week 10. So, like, even if I use Sar as an example, and I really want to go into players like Sar and players like Minte, I think I can wait ultimately, right, to move into some of those midfield picks. And so far, like, Reinders' minutes still look really, really good. I wouldn't be too concerned about him, but you know, leaving at least the rolled free transfer allows me to address that, you know, whatever crops up. And with Paqueta, I think the biggest thing is just, does he actually look like a much, much improved asset? Or was I, for example, over exaggerating? Like, what if he loses half of the set pieces in terms of corners to Diouf this game week? And that doesn't look so good for me. So the nice thing with Paqueta, of course, is that he just seems like such an easy hold up until game week 11. I'll probably give him that, which means that I'll be a bit late on the Minte train, but, you know, we can also just reassess. And free transfers always help. As far as chat questions, sorry, I just need to double check if I've not missed any super chats, but I don't think I have. So thank you guys so much for sending those in. As far as some member messages as well, let's see. All right, nothing so far, but let's just go through chat, right? Start TCLR and Jai. I think I would still go Njai. Would you bench boost Dubravka, JP, Anderson, Goodmanson? I think it's actually pretty decent. Honestly, I think Leeds have just been an extremely impressive home team. Start Matoma, JP, definitely just JP. Play Reinders or Savi, I'd play Reinders. Would you start Guardiola or Reinders? I'd start Reinders. Thoughts on Kudus? Is he a holder? I think he's a hold easily. Minte or Reinders on the wild card, and why? I think I would still go Minte because I actually think they're both really good on minutes, but I actually think that Minte is probably the player in open play that I like the most, so I would just take Minte from that perspective. The Eze punt I think is quite good. I still think Gordon is a better punt for a 1 week punt. Gabriel worth it on the wild card. I would chance it personally. You're going to have a good auto sub anyways because you're wild carding, so why not just take that upside? Thoughts on Thiago? Very, very good still, right? I sold him. I regret it now because Keith Andrews has finally seen the light and started to play a back four, not a back three. What was that? Could have been a gaff. Chiseled Planet said has sent 1 FPL Fran membership to Renzo, so congratulations and thank you so much, Chiseled Planet. Appreciate it. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Good luck this game week and thank you for moderating. Sell DBH. Who's DBH? Dewsbury Hall. That's an interesting interpretation of KDH, but then again, I guess DBH is fair. Yeah, I think it's fine to sell DBH. Start Minte or Virgil. I would start Minte easily. Van de Ven plus Xavi or Sar plus Richards. I think I would go Sar plus Richards. Like, for me, Sar is better than Xavi alone, and Richards is also better than Van de Ven. I personally think that we're almost overrating Spurs to an extent, right? The Spurs fixture run is very medium good in the short term, but then it does fall off a bit of a cliff, and I think we're still starting to see some of the frailties within that team, right? Like, it's not like Spurs have been that impressive. So if you're going to wildcard into certain players now, I don't necessarily see the value of going and holding Spurs players, because sure, like, Leeds on paper is a good game, but then very, very quickly it's games like Chelsea at home, which I still think is tough, United at home, which is tough, and Arsenal away, awful, Newcastle away, awful, Fulham at home, which is also tough, right? So it's not a great overall fixture run if you just think about how long your wildcard is going to last for, how long you want picks to do. So maybe 2 weeks back when you have Kudus, with Wolves at home, then he's a great hold. And if you're not wildcarding, still a great hold. But I wouldn't necessarily be wildcarding into Kudus from now. Salah, thank you so much for the super chat. My wildcard 7 team keeping Salah. Makes sense. Pope, Timber, Senesi, Cash, Rice. Interesting on Cash. I don't know if I'd have him, but I guess part of it is because you just want to see out this great game. Kudus, Minte, Evan Nilsson, Haaland, Waltamada, subs, Dubravka, Garner, Richards, Rodon. Interesting. I think that's a pretty strong team. I don't have major complaints. I do think Cash is a touch short term. I think even like not going that hard into Arsenal is maybe a slight wasted opportunity, but I think you've picked solid picks, and I think the Wisa injury does really make Waltamada a much better pick, so that helps a lot. I also think like Sar I still prefer over Kudus, but it's close. Is this my wild card? No, this is just my rolling team, my friend. I feel quite fortunate that a couple of weeks ago I wildcarded on Game Week 4, and I generally think that I'm pretty close towards the template team. Like, when I was doing my wildcard 7 draft video, I don't draft with my team in mind, right? I just do a wildcard draft just thinking about, like, what's the future fixture run, what are good picks, who to put on it. And aside from, let's say, Mateta, aside from Paqueta even, or Dewsbury Hall, I think, generally speaking, the structure that I've landed on is still really, really strong. So I'm pretty happy with my wildcard 4. Probably one of the first few times recently where I feel like I've done a wildcard where I've sufficiently gotten ahead of the curve. Protagonist, could you check Discord one last time? Do I roll or go for Gakpo to Sar/Gordon? As I said, I think go Gakpo to Gordon. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, he's just a really solid pick for this run. The minutes might not be perfect, but you have at least the pen share to offset that. And Gakpo's not really providing much himself. Bonus on Kudus is that he doesn't go to AFCON. Yeah, that's the thing. But the point that I wanted to make on Kudus versus Sar is a sell around AFCON, but at the same time, I think once Kudus enters that sea of fixtures, which is like Chelsea, Arsenal, or Chelsea, United, another team, Arsenal, and then Newcastle, like, you're going to sell Kudus anyways, right? So it's more about, if they're both future transfers, I probably would still pick Sar. JP or Reinders bench 1. I think I'd bench JP and start Gordon over Lacroix this week. Easily play Gordon over Lacroix. Easily play. Play João Pedro Richards. I think I would just play João Pedro still. Like, the def corners are amazing, and I think they make for really close 50-50 situations. Sometimes you actually might end up benching a better attacker on paper, like I did last week with Mateta, and I kind of regret it in terms of the logic of it, and I got lucky. But like, DEFCON has made, I think, benching arguments quite close. Start Enzo Reinders. I think Reinders for me. Play Wood or Guehi. I'd go Guehi. I have one free transfer, Saka or Gabriel. I'd just go Saka because I think there's full guarantees that he's going to play. I have just triple captain Haaland. What have I done? You can always deactivate it if you're going to use full captain overreact, but I think you've triple captain Haaland for a pretty fair reason, so don't worry about it. Is Watkins cap a good punt against Haaland? I personally don't think so. Thank you, Trini. I'm sure I can say the same thing about your team, my friend, for obvious reasons. Can I say how good of a draft was it in Wildcard 4? Just unfortunate that Bruno hasn't scored penalties, right? Because I think I am losing to a certain set of team that probably had Haaland plus Salah and has missed the Bruno penalties. The penalty misses, rather. João Pedro or Sar. Bench, Virgil, Minte, Anderson. Do I have to play one? I think you just play Virgil, Minte. As my rank is 1,900, so I think just captain Haaland, personally, protagonist. Like, you have an excellent team, my friend. Just chill. more often than not, I think at this stage of the season, a lot of people around those ranked tiers probably aren't making excellent decisions. So I think if you have a team that I personally think is ahead of the curve anyways, just enjoy it. And in a sense, I think you've got Foden in your squad as well, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. But you're almost backing a City result directionally. So why not? JP Reinders, I think Reinders, which I had Foden. I would love to have Foden once again in this week. I said it last week where I really miss on Foden. I'd love to have Foden again. I think Foden's still really, really good. Play Paqueta or Alderete. I'd probably play Alderete. Honestly, I don't know. Oh, that's a tough one, actually. It's such a weird question because obviously, this is what I mean. So DEFCON has completely changed how I would really approach benching, consider it. I think I'd play Paqueta, actually, just thinking about it, honestly. I just think United will score, right? And if United score, then you just need Paqueta to do some DEFCON stuff. He doesn't need to do anything on the pitch, and he probably outscores, likely Alderete, who's going to concede and maybe concede too. All I've made, no vote. Yeah, you've got Reiners Guardiol, which I think is top. What about Sunderland defend? They have 11 DEFCON on average. No, I mean, I've always had Sunderland players high on the cheat sheet, even starting from game week 3, right? But they're not going to get DEFCON every game. And I think also the quality of the Sunderland defense has been slightly overstated. The overperformance is not something that actually directionally we think is going to be consistent. -4 worth it so that I replace Wood to Gyökeres. I think that's just about worth it. Andy, thank you so much for joining as a member of the channel. Welcome to President. Appreciate you joining. If you got any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat, but welcome aboard. Salah to Saka. I think it's not quite worth it. I think once you come, onto Game Week 8, you probably don't like that move so much. Virgil to Gabriel or hold Virgil. I think if you've got confidence that Gabriel is fine, I can see the value of that move. Otherwise, I think holding makes a lot of sense too. I generally like the Virgil plus Gab structure going forwards. Which Crystal Palace is the best? I think Sarr, I think Lacroix, I think Munoz are probably my 3 favorite picks. Richards not too far behind though. If you just want to save some money, Richards makes a lot of sense. Gakpo to Minte or Gordon. I'd probably go Gordon still if you wanted that upside in the short term. Start Anderson or Tarkowski. I'd go Tarkowski. Alderete or João Pedro. Nah, I'd play João Pedro easily. Fran 3 to start from Luca. Gabriel Tarkowski, Senesi, Rodon Anderson. I'd play Gabriel Tarkowski, Senesi. Simple. Rodon first bench. I think that the order you have is perfect as well. Hi, Fran, JP or Njai? I'd play Njai. JP or Munoz? I'd play Munoz. Start Romero or Gakpo. I'd still go Gakpo, I think. As long as you think Gakpo starts, I think that's better. Dream Brother 22, thank you so much for joining as a captain of the channel. You've been really supportive over both streams, so thank you so much. And lovely to have you around. Who is best Salah replacement? I think holding Salah is very reasonable, my friends. If you've held Salah until now, sure, this is not a great game. But once you actually look at your team next week, as soon as this game week is live, you're going to see Salah versus Man United at home. And that's a good game. And I think you'll probably enjoy it. So unless you can do something crazy like a 2 free transfer that gets you Saka plus someone else who actually improves your team a lot, I don't really see the utility of going out of Salah necessarily this week. Gakpo to Rice is a different. I don't really like Rice as a differential pick at all. I mean, Rice could go crazy, but I just don't really like Rice's value within the game. Outside of this game week, Minte or Virgil van Dijk. Minte for me. Reinders or Njai. I think I'd just about go Reinders. Deepak, hi Fran. Got João Pedro and Cucurella on my team. Kudus on your bench. Minte on the team. Who should I bench among Chelsea players? I would play Minte and Kudus over both the Chelsea players personally. Start Njai or Richarlison. I think I would actually still It's a tough question. I mean, there's really no one to bench Richarlison, right? Which I think is something that we have to start with as a point of logic, first of all. He does go towards an international break. But I almost think it's 80 minutes of Richarlison versus 80 minutes of Njai. I probably would actually go Njai, because I think the home game is quite impactful. I think Leeds actually have just generally been in a really strong defense. And then Njai also just having that small chance of getting DEFCONs, I think actually probably edges it just a bit. It is a tough call. Best midfielder for the wild card, I think Sarr, I think Minte, I think Reinders are still very good budget options. Those are my favorites. Enzo, I think if you want to spend a touch more money. And then obviously I think consideration of putting Saka into the wild card makes a lot of sense. Semenyo was just a bit of a lock, isn't he? Start JP or Rogers. I think I'd still start JP. Actually, no, sorry. I would start Rodgers this week over João Pedro. Just about. JP or Njai, I think I'd go Njai once again. Start Caicedo or Njai, I think I'd go Njai. João Pedro or Sar. To me, I would play Sar. I still see this as probably a close to 90-minute Sar game, maybe an 85, similar to Liverpool. So I think that's good enough. RLHPYRT, thank you so much for the super chat. Bench boost to Dubravka, Anderson, Rutter, and Alderete. So Rutter's got Wolves at home, Wolves away, which is nice. Alderete is Man United away, not so great. Anderson actually has a pretty good game. I guess the question is going to be next week, even though you have a worse Rutter game, is it better? And possibly I would say next week is better for your team. But if you're going to wildcard, then obviously just bench boost now. If you're not going to wildcard next week, I'd probably just go next week. So hopefully that's a good answer. Timber or Saliba, I think I would still actually chance Timber personally. You wouldn't move Mbemo before Sunderland, I agree as well. Tarkowski or Njai, I think I would go in terms of playing one or the other. I'd probably actually play Tarkowski, just hoping for DEFCON. But it's close. That's a very close call. Is Gabriel starting? I would say yes, but you know, I obviously don't have inside information on Arsenal, so that's all I can say. I sort of posted a funny little tweet, which was from ChatGPT, which was sort of to interpret Arteta's quote within the lens of Sun Tzu's Art of War. And the response was, I believe, effectively applying Sun Tzu's logic, right? When Arteta's vague, in the case of Gabriel, it is likely strategic concealment. Gabriel might be fit enough to play. So yeah, if that helps. Not hear my answer is Saka and Gordon. I would go Saka first, then Gordon for sure. Saka would be my favorite pick this week as a 1 week punt, or even just as a transfer. Minte, Sar, Bruno, Reinders, Semenyo, then Gyökeres, Haaland, Mateta, then Gabriel. I'm so confused. What is that question? It's a mouthful. Should I buy Gabriel for Murillo or not? Yeah, you probably should. I mean, Murillo's not even fit, right? JP or Van Dijk? JP. Would you start Pedro or Caicedo? I'd start Pedro still. Richarlison to Gyökeres for a -4. I don't think it's worth a -4. I wouldn't say he's overhyped. I just think, like, honestly, there's not many picks in the game that I truly think are essential, you know? Don't you think Saka is overrated? He is 10 mil with Min's risk and no pens. I don't think the Min's risk is as played out as people think. Like, sure, they're going to manage his minutes a fair bit, but I think you're going to expect generally good minutes going forwards. And it's really just a case of, you know, you're onboarding on a great game like West Ham at home, and then generally speaking, Arsenal have a really good run of games up until game week. Like, honestly, they just have a good run of games. Like, for the next, I'm looking at the next 12 games, and it still looks good. Yeah, I don't think he's overrated. But like, if you look at this game now, right, and you're not going to go Salah, like, honestly, just be honest. If you don't go Salah right now and you're going to keep Haaland in your team, you have enough money to go for Saka, right? Especially since people don't think that Bruno is like a good player, right? Sure, if you want to believe that, then honestly, there's no money to spend in the game. You might as well just go Saka. Would appreciate a quick squad check. Haven't had a lot of time this week. Yep, happy to do that. Bench boost active, 2.5 in the bank, 2 free transfers. Okay, Dubravka's fine. Gabriel, Senesi, Guardiola, Tarkowski, Anderson, perfect. Bruno, Reinders, Semenyo, Elliot Anderson, Cancelo, Haaland, Richarlison, JP. Fantastic team, honestly. I mean, yeah, I would just bench boost it, right? Because, like, sure, you could make some 2 free transfers around this kind of like 5 million-esque players, and maybe that can improve your team a bit, but I don't think it's really worth it. Like, you're going to guarantee, I would think, good Richarlison minutes now, so it's kind of worthwhile. I'd just bench boost it. I think that's chill. Who should I bench out of Minte, Sar, Reinders, or João Pedro? I would actually bench João Pedro personally. But it's a risk preference thing as well, right? I can understand not wanting to bench someone with 50-60% ownership, but I don't mind doing it. Why Gordon over Minte? I mean, I think Nottingham Forest at home is a really, really good game. And obviously he's on penalties. So you can take some of the minutes away from Gordon, but he's still better than Minte, I think, outright, just about. But Minte is probably one of the most price-efficient picks in the game. So there's a separate argument to that in terms of, like, you know, how you want to look into that. Do you think Porro will play 60 plus this game week? Yeah, I can't see why he wouldn't. Gabriel will play, I think so. Guardiola Richards, in terms of playing this week, I'd probably play Guardiola still. Vicario is my goalkeeper. Should I hold or go for another goalkeeper? You can't choose Raya. I think I would just hold on to him. I think this is still a decent game. And Vicario is still one of the top goalkeepers, so I wouldn't really fret too much about it. Do I think Gakpo starts? I do think Gakpo starts, but can you really guarantee that his minutes are going to be that good? I don't think so. Should I play Diouf for Rodon? I'd play Rodon. Virgil, Alderete, or Caicedo? I just play Virgil. Likewise on 392 points. That's disgustingly good. Hopefully the bench boost can pay off this week. You want Mateta back very soon. I mean, let's see with Mateta as well, because I mean, I think there's a genuine fair consideration about whether Nketiah is going to take away a lot of his minutes. By the way, you guys are all here. Before you leave for the deadline, I'd absolutely love it if you guys could like it and subscribe to the channel. That really does help support me. So thank you so much. Who should I play? Anderson, Stack, or João Pedro? I think I'd play Stack and João Pedro. Or you mean just one player? I'd probably play João Pedro. Start Njai, Kudus, Tarko, or Van de Ven. I'd play Njai, I'd play Tarko, and then Kudus, and then Van de Ven. Hey Fran, thoughts on Gakpo over Eze to Saka? Or Gakpo to... I would just go Gakpo to Saka. I think that's a very simple move. 69th like, thank you, Nick. Very mature of you. Joking. Bench 1, Virgil, Anderson, Lacrosse, and Nessie. I think I just bench Anderson in that situation. Thiago and King, or Minte and 4.5 striker. I think Minte and 4.5 striker is something I do prefer. Because I think at the end of the day, King is not that impressive of an auto sub, right? If you have defenders, they're better auto subs anyway, so you're going to be fine. Can't get over this Virgil van Dijk to Gabriel dilemma. Hey, I knew that I was going to have this dilemma. I'm not even joking. I knew that I was going to have this dilemma in Game Week 4 when I wildcarded, so I just decided to go for both. Derek, thank you so much. Good luck, Fran. You're saying it. I personally still think it's worth it to go Virgil Gabriel. I know there's a lot of concerns about it, and you'll probably get upset. But at the same time, I guess you're trading out of a pretty subpar Virgil game. Like, I'm basically praying for DEFCON and a stinker from Chelsea. You know, it's not like if I had no Gabriel on my team, I'd be like, oh, I really want to keep Virgil. So I'd probably still make the move. Bench one of Wood or Gakpo or Tavernier. Probably just bench... I'd probably bench Gakpo, to be honest. My heart's telling me to captain Saka, but you have Haaland on the team. Just do it. Prashan. I think that's the play. You can't... see, well, I guess it depends, right? If you're going to complain that you didn't follow your heart after the game week, then don't do it. But if you like to back the decisions that you have in your head and you're comfortable with that, then obviously go Haaland, right? Gabriel or Gyökeres, I'd go Gyökeres first. Kudus Reinders this week, I'd go Reinders. Is a bench boost worth it with JP and Reinders on the bench? Easily. I mean, that's a much better bench boost than I had when I pressed the bench boost button a couple weeks ago. All right, let me just kind of think about my team. Would you guys actually play Virgil over Anderson? I'm curious. I don't think so, right? Because I just have Semenyo, so it's like, why would I want to do that? But, interesting question. All right, what do you guys... Let's just do some polls, right? What should we do? This is the first poll. I'm kind of curious to see how people think that they're going to operate in a few weeks' time. 100% Virgil van Dijk, yep. Triple captain Haaland. It's not one that I love. It's not one that I love, but I think it's good. But yeah, we're almost at 100 likes, so please do like the stream. That really, really does help. Porro or Dango this week? I'd play Porro. Hey, Fran, would you do Richarlison to Gyökeres? If it was worth the free transfer, yeah, I probably would do that. Isidore Reinders, I'd just go Reinders. Bench Virgil van Dijk for Gravenberch? No, I would play Virgil van Dijk. Would you start Anderson or Richards? I'd play Richards, personally. Salah is on holiday mode and you're a Liverpool fan? Yeah. So that's a pretty convincing vote. I'm going to end it early, but I think the vote's pretty convincing, even from the 58 voters. Just pretty indicative, I think, of how people generally think about Liverpool right now, right? Which, you know, I think is fair, just given what we've seen so far. Hard to say that we've been overwhelmingly impressed, but they still lead the league. Pretty equal, Kearney says. I would play Anderson, but I also don't think Chelsea will score. Interesting. Hello, Fran. Hope you're doing all right so far. You took off Chalobah and Murillo for Timber and California -4 while carding next game weekend. Should I play Richards over Rutter? No, I'd still play Rutter over Richards, I think, this week specifically. You're not going to back You're not going back to Salah via Haaland. You'll sell Bruno Fernandes for Salah and downgrade a striker likely. Interesting. So that's what you're going to do with your 2 free transfers, huh? I just still don't know if that structure really makes too much sense, right? Because if you're not going to captain Haaland for like multiple weeks on end, or maybe, yeah, because that's kind of my question, right? If you go Haaland versus Salah, I think the question is, over the next 4 weeks, you're most likely not going to captain Haaland a single time, other than maybe game week 11. Right, so you're going to go Salah versus United, I think. You then go Salah versus Brentford. You then go Salah again versus Aston Villa. You then don't care about game week 11 because they're playing versus each other. Maybe you have another captaincy. It's kind of tough because if Palmer's not around game week 11 and he really does have the surgery, you know, we probably go Haaland in that week. Fair enough. But is that enough to justify, I guess, going Haaland plus Salah? Because all I'm saying is, if you're not, like, is Haaland worth it as a non-captain within an FPL team right now? Do we have enough value to sort of justify going for both? Midfield captaincy is always best if you can go there. Exactly, that's my point though, right? Personally, you wouldn't back any team versus a Nuno 11. Are we talking like the Gyökeres captaincy? Thoughts on having no Semenyo? I think it's okay. Once again, this is a risk preference thing, right? Sure, so I think if you've really missed the boat in Semenyo, you haven't gotten the ample price rises. I don't think there's necessarily a reason where on the wildcard particularly you have to go for Semenyo at this moment in time. So I think it's okay to go without Semenyo. Neil says best under 8.5 mid for Gakpo in my opinion. I would say Gordon. Burn or João Pedro? I would just play João Pedro. I think Virgil has a higher likelihood of securing BPS than Anderson. True, because you're actually expecting Liverpool to probably dominate the game if it ends up being a pretty tame score. Is that kind of what your suggestion is? Pro tip, instead of spamming, just pop a super chat if urgent question. Very good pro tip. Very good pro tip. Would you bench Senesi for Gravenberch? I would not. I would easily play Senesi over Gravenberch. Plus, we have to equate that there's no Chalobah for Chelsea. At the same time, though, I mean, Badiashile, unironically, at the start of the season, I actually said Badiashile would be quite interesting given the Colwell ACL. And I think he's a good player. I still think Badiashile is a good player. So let's see what happens with him. I think he could end up being nailed. Maybe I'm wrong. Hey, Fran, do I play Njai or Munoz? I would play Munoz. Pedro Porro to Senesi or roll in game week 8. I'd probably do Porro to Senesi. Is Kudus a good long-term pick? I still think he's very good for the next 5 games. If that's long-term for you. Is Foden captain good? For me, no. I would still pick Haaland every time. If you don't have Haaland, I think he's actually interesting. So, sure. Steve Parker, thank you so much for the super chat. I can't see your message though, so please feel free to drop a message in the chat, Steve, and I'll have a look out to make sure that I can see your message and I respond to it as soon as possible. Stack or Njai? I think I would just play Njai. Would you start Mateta or João Pedro? I think I would still play João Pedro. Waltemata or Mateta? I'd play Waltemata easily. You're only here for cookies. Well, you're going to have to leave. We're almost at 100 likes, so please send us there. Waltemata and Doku in for Grealish and João Pedro. I don't think you necessarily need to go out of João Pedro, if I'm being completely honest. I think this is a really good Waltemata game, Steve, but I'm not sure if either players are like that exciting as transfers in. I actually think like the likes of Sar, Ismailia that is, could be more interesting. Minte even over that Doku position. If you really are comfortable going João Pedro and away from João Pedro, I think you can go Waltemata if you want to, but I wouldn't do it for a hit, certainly. And I still think João Pedro, if you look at the future run for Chelsea, it's still really, really good. I think it's more to the perspective that João Pedro's a sell on a wild card as opposed to a sell using a free transfer. So I think saving your free transfers can actually help your team out a bit more, because to me that's a bit of a side grade this week, even though Waltemata is softly better than João Pedro this week. It is a good Doku game as well, but you have to keep in mind that there's a bit more depth coming back post-international break that could hurt Doku. So you probably want free transfers to make better moves going forwards. Minte, Sar, Rice is the one this week. Yeah, you know that's not even true, Dream Brother. Come on, let's be honest here. Do I always accept cookies? I mean, I do like cookies, all right? Is there a problem with this? How am I liking Aston Villa this game week? Please best be Fran. Watkins and Rodgers in play. I mean, look, if you can't get blessed by Burnley at home, you know, I can't save you. No, I think look, it's as good a play as it ever will be for these Villa players, if you want to put it that way. Evan Nilsson or Waltemata on wildcard? I would probably go Waldemar right now. I think it's quite interesting, just given the Wisa injury. It's interesting because both of these strikers are 7 million, and they're both like ironically players who actually don't have penalties, but are strikers that are quite interesting. Maybe I'd still go Evan Nilsson. Like if you have tremendous confidence in Bournemouth as a team, maybe I would still actually just go Evan Nilsson. But the thing with Bournemouth is they do have some toughish games, right? Like 10 and 11, like in particular, stick out for me. I think the biggest question with Baltimore is how good are his minutes going to be, right? Because the Wisa injury, I think, really kind of helps accentuate how much better he is in the short term. So I would still take the bet on Baltimore. But yeah. Triple Haaland, I think it's okay. I don't think it's exceptional, personally. Guehi plus Reinders or Tarko plus JP. I'd probably go Guehi plus Reinders. Who to pick, Richards or Njai? I think I'd play Njai. Keep in mind, obviously, both these players, like, they can concede and they can do nothing, but they can still get DEFCON quite consistently. So I think, like, it's not a huge issue to just play Njai, right? Because you can almost win by losing, unless Everton obviously don't score. But I think I'd take the chance of Everton scoring just based on odds. Sells or Dubravka, I think I would just play Dubravka, to be honest. Newcastle away is a really tough match. Reinders or Minte or other? I'd go Minte. Hey, Fran, start Reinders or Strand Larson? I'd probably actually go Reinders. Bench one of Reinders, Van de Ven or João Pedro? I think I'd just bench Van de Ven. We're pretty close towards the deadline, guys. 6 minutes away, so thank you so much for supporting, watching the stream. Enjoy benefits this week, likely from playing via the left. Expect Grealish 10 and a possible Dibbling cameo. Well, I mean, are you thinking, oh, you don't think Dibbling's going to start? Or what do you think exactly is going to happen there? Hi, Fran, really love your content. Thank you so much, Navidip. I really, really do appreciate it. You actually send these comments almost every week, and I really, really do appreciate it. So thank you, and I hope all the best for you. Start Kukurea or Damsgaard? Kukurea for me. Start Foster or João Pedro? I'd start João Pedro. Start Burn and 0.1 off Palmer in future. I mean, the thing is Palmer could drop in the future, so don't worry about it so much. I would just go Burn. Williams to Gabriel or Wood to Gyökeres. Evening Brundlefly. I think Williams to Gabriel is probably a better move. 50-50 Dibbling start, maybe a tad too soon for him. Yeah, but I just think also part of it too is like this is a great opportunity to almost bet him in, right? Because sooner or later he's going to have to start games during AFCON maybe. Cheers, Ben. Start Xavi or Reinders? I'd go Reinders. Gordon or Cunha? I'd play Gordon still. I mean, penalties I think is a huge cushion. Andy says, I need to bring in 2 Arsenal assets. Which 2 should I prioritize between Gabriel, Timber, Saka, Gyök? I would say Saka, Gyök. Especially with a slight uncertainty over Gabriel, you know? And part of it too is if you're going to bring 2 Arsenal assets, I kind of think betting against the field with regarding the clean sheet could actually be quite fun and beneficial towards your team because there's so many avenues towards expecting Arsenal points this week. Hey, Janks, I hope you're doing well. Thoughts on Njai to Doku? Got him wildcard last week. Makes sense to get him out this week. I think Njai is still a good hold, my friend. I really think so. I wouldn't be too overreacting on that sort of piece with Njai. I think almost you can maybe transfer Njai next week and there could be even more options on the table for you, right? Like, for example, if next week you get information on Palmer, we come back from the international break and he has a surgery, suddenly I think Enzo becomes an interesting transfer. Please don't spam chat, Porco. Play Enzo over Minte. I think I'd still play Minte. Amarildo, thank you so much for the super chat. 1 free transfer, 4.9 million. Change Agbadu for who? Or just roll? Can you get Gabriel? I'd probably go Gabriel or Timber. You go to work now. Thank you, Kearney. Pleasure, Fran, and good luck this gaming. Same to you. All the best, my friend. Start Gakpo or JP. I'd probably go JP. Mateta, João Pedro, who to play? I think I'd still play João Pedro within my situation. Is Semenyo a good shot for captain instead of Haaland? Personally, I don't think so. I would still go Haaland first. Remember to like and subscribe. Absolutely, please do if you haven't done that. Gakpo or Xhaka? I would say I'd play Granit Xhaka. I would say if you can roll, guys. This is a pretty decent week to roll, all things being said, right? Unless you have huge problem childs in your team and you can go to someone like Minte, or you're lacking in Arsenal players, you can go towards Arsenal players. You have Gakpo, for example, who, as I said, is a problem child, and you can go to Gordon, but not to Saka. I think those are all valid transfers. But I guess, in my case, I've got a luxury position of having a pretty decent team on paper. I probably shouldn't overreact by using a free transfer and setting myself up a little bit worse for the future. So I am going to, manage my team a little bit better by going this direction. I'm trying to just check if we just have any kind of like last minute news or anything like that. Oh shit. All right, no news from what I can see, and we literally have 1 minute left, guys. 1 minute left. Did I swear? I can't remember. Did I? Sorry, Anderson or Van Dijk? Van Dijk. I mean, I actually have Van Dijk in my team, right? Thoughts on 4.3 Liverpool goalkeeper, Giorgio Mamarashvili? I don't think he's really worth a free transfer, even though I do like him as a goalkeeper. Oh God, I said it. I swear I didn't say anything. Can't even remember. Should I go KDH to Minte? Yes, I would do that. 100%. Do it. Do it. You got 20 seconds to do it. Spurs are getting worse and worse. Do you think Trippier could be better than Poe in the upcoming weeks? I think it's okay, but Trippier's not that interesting. All right, that's it, guys. 10 seconds left. Don't ask questions in chat. Make your transfers. Make your transfers, please. I'm begging you. All right, make your transfers. And that is the deadline. All right, let's refresh the page. Can we still make transfers? Oh, no, we can't. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching the stream. I really appreciate you guys for being around. I am off to most likely get dinner with a friend and then hang out with a couple high school friends. Otherwise, I hope you guys take care and I hope you guys have a lovely weekend. I am hoping that we actually get another good game week because it feels good to have green arrows for once in my life after last season's debacle. So yeah, take care, all the best. Hope you guys have lovely games. I'll be watching Fulham and Bournemouth when that rolls around in 1 hour and 30 minutes time, but otherwise, yeah, take care, all the best. Bosh.